Hi, welcome everyone. Welcome everyone. We are here for the second panel of the Valencia MeetUp. We would like to welcome Sarah Colwell from the Instant Group and Albert Cañigueral from Ouishare, but he's also a writer and so many things that he will explain in a while, in a short moment. Today we are here in Valencia, in Hueco Ruzafa, and it's very nice to be here. It's a little bit of normal life. We had a small public here. We are keeping distances and we are having masks, so everyone is safe. And we have Albert connecting from Barcelona and Sarah connecting from the UK. Thank you very much for being part of this Valencia MeetUp, which is part of the road to CWSC that we hope we can have in May as a physical, which is the idea, and also as a digital event. Sarah and Albert, could you introduce yourselves? Sarah, we will start with you.
Yes, hi, I'm Sarah Colwell. I'm part of the research and insight team at the Instant Group. I've been with the company for around 17 years now, working in various different departments, so have a very in-depth knowledge of the flexible workspace industry. Our primary focus at the moment is gathering and analysing data in order to produce kind of market-leading insight reports, which are being used by operators and landlords alike in order to assist them with their decision-making processes in the real estate world.
Oh, thank you so much. I have to say that I know the work that Sarah's group, it's also James' group from the Instant Group, and I have to say that they do amazing reports. Indeed, the group created a report for our CWSC 2019, and it was amazing how they picture the Spanish market. It was really interesting. Albert, it's really nice to have you here.
Could you? Thank you, Marc. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm Albert. I'm connector in an organization called Ouishare, which probably you don't understand what is a connector and what is Ouishare. So Ouishare is a collective of freelancers that we have been exploring the impact of digital technology in society for the last almost 10 years with a critical stance. So we like innovation, we like digital technologies at the same time that we are aware of all the risks. And being a connector in this organization, it means that I've been involved for a long time and I'm steering a little bit the governance and the organization itself. And then in this role, what I'm doing, I'm a freelancer teaching, researching, doing consultancy for governments, for companies, and also organizations like Inter-American Development Bank, where we try to explore the impacts of digital technologies. For the last 2 years, I've been focused on the impacts of digital platforms in the labor market.
Mm-hmm. I know, because you are probably not going to tell, but I know that you recently write your second book.
Yeah, I published a book called, in Spanish, El trabajo ya no es lo que era. Work is not what it used to be. And it's just out since a month ago. It was published, and it's doing pretty well.
Okay, nice to know. And this is relevant for the conversation we are going to have today, because this panel is about the added value that co-working is giving to companies. Co-working is related with innovation or talent retention. And this is a topic that have been there since the very beginning of co-working. All the managers always talk about innovation and talent retention, and we would like to discuss with you not only about this, but which value is co-working really adding to the society, to the companies. And we would like to have this conversation with people which is not directly working in co-working, but with people who have knowledge about the sector, about the work, about the future, but that you are neutral in some way. So this is why you are here. So let's go ahead. The first question is for you, Sarah. You are part of the research group of the Instant Group, and I know that you are always trying to get data for flexible workspace. I know that it's really difficult to measure talent retention and this kind of information, and I was wondering if there are any metrics that you have that can prove that coworking is promoting innovation and retaining talent, or if it's not. Could you tell us a little bit about this, if there's data, if there's no data, what you're feeling about this?
Yeah, of course. I think at the moment there are very few metrics specifically looking at talent retention and the link with flexible workspaces. But what we do know is that employee demands are changing, their priorities are changing, and in order to retain their staff, companies are going to have to react and change to the growing needs of their employees. And I think what flexible workspaces can do is that they provide companies with the tools with which to do that. We know that employees want to be working in remote locations closer to home. They want a more agile working solution, and they also want more flexible working policies from their HR teams. And flexible working can be put in place if companies were to kind of use the flexible workspaces as part of their strategy. For example, something that's been talked about a lot recently is obviously staff wanting to return to work closer to where they live, and several of our data points do point to that fact. We've seen increasing demand in satellite locations, we've seen increasing occupancy levels within co-working spaces on the outskirts of towns as opposed to those in central business districts. And so in order to retain these staff, companies are going to need to think about putting in place this hybrid working solution where their staff do have the option to work from home, to work from a drop-in co-working space nearby, or to go to a central hub within a city centre location. And so it's the flexible workspaces which are really going to enable this and help companies to retain their talent. So they're definitely going to have a large part to play in that.
Yeah, indeed, in some way, COVID accelerated something. It's a catalyst for a trend that was already there. What you explain, it's the explanation of the hub and spoke model that I know that it's something that also came. I don't know if the origin is the Instant Group, but you have been, your research group and your brokers are talking about that model. Can you briefly explain the hub and spoke model so the people is more aware of what's that model?
Yes, so I suppose traditionally what a lot of companies have is they have one single central location, usually within a central business district where all the staff commuting into. And the thought behind the hub and spoke model is that there will still be this need for a hub location. There's always going to be staff who want to be collaborating, meeting, face-to-face meetings in a central location, but then that location is supported by a number of hub locations, which are then strategically placed in satellite locations. And what companies can do is they can use kind of demographic data to then strategically place these hubs in locations where there's more talent for their specific industry. So that's another way that this model can help companies to attract that talent from these wider pools by having several satellite locations rather than just a central location, which is very limiting in terms of attracting talent that can only commute into that one location.
Indeed, I know that there are some markets, really competitive markets and really competitive industries in which before the pandemic, depending on your location, you are not even able to secure interviews for potential candidates for your work openings. So I think with COVID, this will be more important than ever. Albert, I would like to go back a little bit in history and then do a fast forward. I know that you are I don't know if it's right to say it this way, but you're a hardcore coworking user. You are a user, a coworking member since a very long time ago. With your experience in all these years, which coworking and the way of working changed a lot, how it changed, how from the user perspective, and in the case of you, you are an expert in work, in the future of work, new way of working, etc. How all these things and what make you stay in co-working instead of choosing another arrangement for your workplace?
Yeah, since I started freelancing and doing some consultancy work, I've always been based on co-working since, as you said, back in time, probably that's 2012, 2013, when some of the first large co-working spaces were open in Barcelona. Actually, my first co-working space was Makers of Barcelona. I still go there from time to time. And for me, especially at the beginning, being a newbie on the freelancing industry, it was important to connect to like-minded people and to be surrounded with people with the same type of challenges. So this community aspect for me was crucial. And I think at the beginning, as you say, at that time, probably the co-workings were more catering this type of freelancing community and so on. I had a good fit there. It's also important for me because I have to meet with people, sometimes like potential customers or colleagues or even journalists from time to time. So it's important to have a location which is which is centrally located, easy to access, with good facilities. So all this aspect of having a place which is not my home to meet with people is important, and probably not as cold as a hotel. For me, it's also important, and I've been changing a little bit sometimes after this initial experience to other co-working like Cubic in another neighborhood, or later on in Cloudworks, which is more in the Eixample, another neighborhood in Barcelona. Depending also on the needs of the team, and we've been changing a little bit the location. And it's important, I would say, to have a network of spaces where you can go in the city, because sometimes maybe you need to go to the theater after working, so I go to the location that is closer to the theaters, or maybe I have a physical meeting at a customer's location, and I go to the co-working space that is closer to it. So not just having, in my case, because I'm very mobile, very nomad inside the city, it's important for me not just to belong to one space, but to be able to jump in several spaces in the city. That's very useful for me. And also it has proven to be a very flexible. We also have been hosting events. So part of what we do in the Ouishare community is to have events like roundtables, presentations, these kind of things in the mid-sized co-workings have always been super good. And last but not least, when we've organized larger events with 400, 500 people, we call it Ouishare Fest. Our team grew very fast from 1, 2, 3, or 5 people to maybe a team of 20 or 25 for a short period of 2 or 3 months. So it was important to have agreement with the co-workings where we could take some additional space in this co-working to have a flexible space dynamic according to the projects that we are running. It has always been important, and also for training. So as you see, for me, it has many advantages compared to working at home.
Yeah, nice. You are very fluid, by the way. I mean, it's not that, sadly, it's not that usual that someone moves around the same city and working with so many places. This question is for both of you. What, beside the things previously commented, what added value do you think that co-working is adding to companies today? Who wants to take it first? Sarah?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest benefits, and one we can't ignore, is the financial benefits that flexible workspaces can bring to companies. Not just in terms of kind of moving out of prime locations, it's a cost-saving exercise, but also the agility and flexibility that flexible workspaces can bring has huge amounts of cost savings for companies, which has been brought to light by the pandemic. Previously, companies took on large amounts of spaces for longer terms in the thought that would be cost-saving over time, but our models have shown that if a company is likely to change size within the first 3 years of taking up an office space, then the flexible workspace is going to be the most cost-effective solution for them. I think the pandemic has shown every company that we don't know what's around the corner, and the value to a company of being able to right-size their office to react to changing situations in terms of staff, economy, is invaluable to them, and it's going to be even more so moving forward now, and that's going to be a key for companies to ensure that they do have that ability to right size as and when needed. There's huge amounts of office space at the moment which is underutilized, and that's a huge cost to a company. So having been in a flexible workspace where they can just reduce size, take on extra space, take on space in various locations as and when needed, is going to be huge.
Oh, nice. So we have financial benefits, for sure, less capex or capex zero, close to zero,
Yeah.
and on the other hand, flexibility. Albert, you also mentioned flexibility at the beginning, and also adapting to a fluid kind of setting. But which values do you think coworking add to companies today?
I think there's another value that it's probably not so well known, which is mixing with other companies. So in a place where other companies will have even so that your employees will be in touch with potentially freelancers or employees from other companies. So in terms of innovation and changing ideas, tools, ways of working, it's a very rich space for collective intelligence and collective learning. And that used to be perceived as a risk in the past, I think, for many companies, no, where they prefer to have like innovation closed. But it's in such a fluid world, I think it's more important to be porous or to be really open on this type of innovation. So now it's seen more as an advantage to be part of these learning spaces, because at the end, a co-working space, when well designed and well managed, it's a very, very interesting learning space. And if the people in the company learn, the company is learning also, and they will have a better position for innovation and for developing products and services for the market. So I would say, this exchange with other companies' employees or freelancers is an added value also.
Yeah. That's nice. It's like fostering your employees with different, insights and points of view and knowledge, which is not only inside the company but also outside the company. And having an environment that makes them thrive, it for sure helps them and make them more happy. We stay with you, Albert. Do you think that different kinds of clients perceive different values from co-working space?
I've never managed a co-working space, but my experience as a user and meeting other people in co-working spaces. I think obviously, and maybe also we talk about co-working spaces as a whole, and it might make sense. And I think you've written some articles on that, or the history and the evolution of co-working spaces and where we are now. So it might make sense to understand which co-working spaces are more catering the freelancer workers, which co-working spaces are more like the type of WeWork, where closed office and this kind of private spaces with some communal spaces but private spaces, which are niche co-workings for certain audiovisual sector or for the writers or for the therapists. No, we see a lot. So I think we need to, in order to answer a little bit this question for different publics, also to understand the different typologies of co-working. And I think, Marc, you know better than I do exactly how to organize all this diversity. But yeah, clearly the different type of, and it's not the same for a SME or a startup, which probably will be more on this cost adjustment or cost mentality, using the space in that respect, and to have a flexible space, than for maybe a corporation, where the thing I mentioned about having a connection with other innovation employees might be more important. So, but I don't know.
Yeah, I love your approach, because I'm a big fan of that question. When someone approached me like, I want to build a co-working space, I'm like, okay, what kind of space do you want to build? And at some point in the past, the people were like, well, a co-working space. And I was like, yeah, but not all of them are the same. Not all of them are aiming the same target group. So you have a different approach and create a different appeal for a different kind of public. Sarah, you have a lot of different leads in the company. So you are providing a space from single person that is looking for, usually in the company you call it a desk. I'm not a very fan of that way of talking, but from a single desk to a group of 80 or 100. Do you see different kinds of worries, requests in this group? Can you, I know this, you can be talking about this for hours, but could you try to summarize a bit your point of that? I know that that's a tricky question.
Sure. I think for me as well, something to consider is the kind of demographics of each individual company as well. There is kind of no one size fits all, and you might have a company with a higher proportion of kind of younger employees or at the beginning of their career path who are going to favour the collaboration that Albert was speaking about within a co-working space. But you're also going to get, perhaps the slightly older demographics who are going to favour the working closer to home, having a better work-life balance, spending more time with family. And one of the biggest challenges for the companies is how do they create a solution that's going to cater for all of those different requirements within one company. And that is where what we see a lot of growth of is the hybrid solution. So where you have a co-working space that's going to offer the co-working, hot desking area, but also private offices as well. So that gives company that flexibility. So some teams can have a private office, others can go and mix with other companies, share ideas, collaborate. And so where we're seeing a lot of the growth in many markets is with these hybrid spaces. That's not to say obviously that co-working only spaces, are growing as well, and it is different from market to market and city to city. But I think trying to cater for all of those needs within a single company is a big challenge, and definitely something that flexible workspaces can help solve.
Mm-hmm. And do you think that there's a difference about the perceived value pre-pandemic and post or during the pandemic time?
A lot of these changes we've been speaking about were happening before the pandemic, flexible working close at home, and that's not a new concept. A lot of companies were already looking to move out of city centres in order to save money. For me, one of the big things that has been brought to light through the pandemic, and which probably wasn't focused so much on before, is the importance of HR teams when it comes to real estate decisions. And there's going to be a lot closer working, I think, between HR and real estate teams moving forward, because we are seeing this evolution of the office from property to people, and it's no longer just about having an office space where people turn up to 9 to 5, work, go home. People now want something more from their office spaces. They're demanding more, and they need a reason to get out of the home office and go back into the office. And one of the key things I think we've all missed from being in an office is that collaboration, that face-to-face time. And so that's going to become one of the roles of the office and the purpose of the office, and that's where companies have the challenge, is how do they create that environment within their office spaces. And that is exactly what co-working spaces are aimed at. They're aimed towards collaboration, towards bringing people together, building that community spirit, as Albert mentioned. So I think that is going to be one of the big things which will change in terms of offices becoming very people-centric as opposed to just a property.
Yeah, right. Nice. I like it. Albert, you talk a lot about the future of work, and we made in some way maybe for the mainstream public a jump with this pandemic. The same question for you as I made to Sarah. What do you think about the perceived value, or how people evaluate this?
Yeah, no, I think Sarah covered most of the ground in this respect. Yeah, no, I think what has been interesting with the pandemic is this idea. A lot of the narrative on the news was about working from the office and working from home. It was at the very beginning, the initial period. And what we've seen recently, I would especially say after summer, there is the working from anywhere concept that is emerging. And I think, for example, the Harvard Business Review of December is focused, the cover of the magazine is focused on that. So I think one of the key elements is how do you integrate these co-working solutions as part of a larger solution of working from anywhere? Because sometimes I might be willing to work from home for maybe I need to be with the family, as Sarah mentioned, or it's the best option for maybe Monday morning or whatever. And then for the rest of the week, I need a closed office, and then I need something more flexible because I'm kickstarting a project and I need to be with my peers in a larger room. So I think it's important to go into this idea of being part of a larger solution of working from anywhere, not just working from home. But I think it's one of the changes pre-pandemic and post-pandemic. Or we are not post-pandemic yet, we are in the middle of it. No, your mask is a signal of that, Marc. So, but yeah, I would say this is one of the key elements that we are noticing.
Absolutely, and before we are getting closer to the spicy part of the talk. But before that, I would like to tell you that are listening from home, from an office or from a co-working space, that you can ask them. So you can write in Attendify, and my colleague Laura will pass the questions to me, and I will ask Sarah and Albert. Sarah, this question is for you. What trends do you think that will be accentuated with the evolution of the pandemic? What is going to change with this evolution and with an eventual future disappearance of the pandemic?
I think that, absolutely the way that we work is going to change for good. I mean, everyone during the pandemic has been given a taste of flexible working and working from home, which they probably didn't have beforehand. And people are not going to be willing to give that up entirely to return to the office post-pandemic. But at the same time, I think people don't also want to stay working from home forever. They've seen the value in having an office in whatever role that is going to take as we emerge from the pandemic. So I think what is going to come out of this is a hybrid working solution where we say, as Alba said, we work from anywhere, and that people have that option to work close to home, at home, in a hub location. But I think there are going to be challenges to that we're going to have to overcome. Employees are going to have to be enabled with the technologies that they need. They're going to have flexible working policies in place. At the moment, we don't have a choice, but we need contracts in place to enable that moving forward. And in terms of talking about larger companies that want to embrace this agile working solution, I think there's going to need a lot of investment from co-working operators in these suburban satellite locations that we've spoken about, because at the moment it's going to be hard for them to find good high quality office space within these smaller towns, smaller locations that they're used to within central business districts. And I'm sure that we've seen that the flexible workspace industry can adapt. It does evolve very quickly to changing times, so this will happen. And I believe that these operators will invest in more satellite locations moving forward, but it's not going to happen overnight. So I think it's going to take some time. But we will see this change to a hybrid working solution, and the flexible workspace being at the heart of that.
Yeah, I know that some city council agencies around were worried, or because of the concentration of co-working locations just in the central districts, or the city's hotspots. And I think that this pandemic and this spread, which, as you mentioned, it was something that was happening before. I can remember a piece of news like 3 years ago that WeWork started opening locations in the outskirts of some cities in some US suburbs. So I think that it was something that was going around, and also in the co-working industry. I think back in 2017, 2018, it was mentioned as a trend, which never become like a big trend, but it was there, and yeah, it's something that today it's really all the time on the news, and people is talking about that, and for sure the industry will react to that. Albert, and I know that this is a really difficult one. What should any co-working space or flexible workspace should be doing to avoid becoming obsolete in the future of work?
Yeah, that's a very tricky one. In this time of future thinking on what is crucial, I always recall an interview with that Jeff Bezos was doing, where they were asking what are the most important things that they are going to change in the next 10 years. And his reply was, maybe it's more important to think about what are the things that are not going to change. That should be your key value. This is where you need to invest more. He mentioned that people will always want to have faster delivery and cheaper products, and this is where he's like being focused for since ever, basically, in his business. So I'll reply to your question with a question that we can answer collectively. That what are the things that are not going to change? Do you think in the space of the co-working or the space management needs? For me, obviously, there is, and it has been mentioned by Sarah and by yourself. There is the price point. I think there's a key element because it's a very rational decision on how you invest part of your budget in certain. No, you will be the budget you used to be allocating in your office space will be distributed in a different way. So as part of this equation, probably the price point, the price in the part of the equation is important. So this is something that for the next 10 years or next 5 years, for sure, it's important.
And something I would like to add, people hate paying for something they feel they are not fully using. So it's price and flexibility, so you are paying for what you're actually using. Sorry to interrupt you, but it was a collective thing, so you unleashed me.
I was doing a boomerang effect with the question, so we can collectively answer it. And for me, again, the sense of so I've been to different co-working spaces, as I mentioned, and I tend to go more to the ones that I have a sense of community, of belonging, of real informal exchange. My character, that doesn't mean that
I agree with that
for everybody, but I think it's not only the space, it's the people, especially when you see pictures of co-working spaces empty. This is, for me, the good way to promote a co-working space in the space with people.
Sarah, I'm going to make a difficult question for you. Working on the Instant Group, are you a user of flexible workspaces?
That's a tricky question.
Isn't it?
As in our main headquarters in London, no, but we've expanded globally in recent years and have a lot of people working across the US, across Asia Pac, who don't actually have a physical office. And so in those cases, yes, absolutely, we utilize our flexible workspace partners in order for those employees to get out of the home office and to go and work within those locations. And actually what we've had throughout the pandemic is we've had a lot of our partners reaching out to us and offering their spaces for us to go and work from. So rather than going to work in our head office, we've had a lot of employees, particularly in London, going out and to work in days in different co-working spaces. And then that actually brings a lot of value to us in that we've experienced those spaces. And as our sales teams are then on our that part of our business are selling those office space, recommending them to our clients, we've actually got first-hand experience. And I think there's going to be a huge value in that as well moving forward, in that, I can see that we will utilize those workspaces more often, and especially as we go globally. And it does give you that opportunity to recruit people in any location, because we know that there's going to be an office space probably down the road, co-working location that they can use, so that it goes hand in hand with what we've been speaking about in terms of talent, growing talent pools, and all those benefits. So
nice.
And if I can complement in this trend that Sarah was describing on her own experience, and the flexibility of the space. I think there is a secondary trend or a derivada, I don't know how to say that, on all that. This is the flexibility on the workforce itself. we are talking still a lot on this conversation about employees, my employees, my talent, my very, very sense of belonging, in the same way that we used to have an office, our office. And now when we have the employees scattered in different locations, which are not our locations, they're someone else's location. So one trend that is growing also because of the pandemic is the use of the remote, of the on-demand workforce through digital platforms like Upwork, Freelancer, or Fiverr, or through just direct contact with, because you might know some of the freelancers. But there has been a number of studies, one from Upwork, and an interesting article on this Harvard Business Review issue this November, the last issue, which is signaling a stronger trend on, because we've experienced what it means to have employees remotely in a flexible way. There seems to be a trend also through this on-demand freelancing workforce, which is a very good fit for the co-working also.
Yeah, nice. Sarah, would you like to comment on what Albert replied at the beginning regarding the sensibility of price and my point in price and flexibility?
In what respect?
Yeah, in this I mean, we still are in this question, like what we have to do not become obsolete, and Alberta started with the price, talking about the sensitivity of people regarding the price. I added also that they hate the feeling of I'm paying for something I'm not fully using, so it's a little bit of price plus flexibility or pay-per-use in some way. Would you like to add something about that? Because I think that you have a lot of information about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can say that we have seen prices dropping throughout the pandemic as operators are trying to attract new clients, retain existing clients. But what we are seeing, rather than just slashing prices, is operators are trying to add value to their offering. So in terms of the amenities that they're offering, we've seen many operators create more of a membership model, which gives their clients the option of working from any number of their locations that they have across the UK, globally even. So they're trying to add more into what they are offering in terms of the price, because if we constantly slash pricing, that's going to be very negative on their business model. But by adding in additional values and amenities that the clients can either incorporate into their office space, or as and when they need it, it's more of a kind of ad hoc solution, then they can build value into their space rather than just cutting the costs. And we actually did quite an interesting piece of research recently on the amenities offered, in terms of talking about whether workspaces are going to become obsolete and what they need to do. And we looked at, almost every workspace offers, the top amenities that you would expect from a flexible working space, like meeting rooms, shared workspaces, Wi-Fi, all those things. But if we think about what amenities are going to be important for clients as they return to the office post-pandemic, I think those things are going to change quite considerably. Things like parking, which had dropped in terms of priority for a lot of people, are now back at the top of their list because they want to avoid using public transport. We need bike racks, showers, even things like pet friendly. Everyone has a lockdown puppy, and they need to be able to take those pets back into the office as they return. So all these amenities are now becoming much more important. And if you look at the proportion of flexible workspaces that actually offer those, it's much smaller than who offer the standard amenities. And they're going to be, I think, the ones who are going to prosper and survive. And it's a case of workspaces looking at what can they offer to set themselves apart to attract these clients as they return to the office.
Okay, now I have I think it's the greatest challenge of them all, which is summarize your amazing reply. We have the Albert approach, which I love, which is what's not going to change, and it's not going to change the will of people to be with people, which is something that we are especially missing in this pandemic. I think it hurt much more than we really expect. At the beginning, maybe we didn't know how it will impact our lives, but right now we really know how it's impacting our lives, and it's something it's not easy to give away. We also have flexibility as the headline. Like it's like flexibility in the work location, so being able to work in several locations, depending on your day, depending on your needs, depending on the facilities you need. So it seems for some operators that may be listening to us, they will be like, I do have a small space, I cannot offer several locations, so guys and gals then join together with other spaces in other locations to offer a network of spaces. That's a free idea I give away to you. It has been difficult to make this approach in the past, but I think that now is the right time to do. It's the big operators can do that, but the small operators can do that if you work together and find a way of working together. Then continuing with that flexibility, Albert mentioned the change in the workforce, that we are maybe mentally limited and thinking only on like a certain kind of workforce, but the workforce is going to change, and there were some trends in the last 5 to 10 years, for sure. Albert knows this much better than me, and these changes are going to continue, and maybe they will be accelerated with the pandemic. So it's a changing workforce, and then we have also a changing workspace. Albert, for example, in his day life, depending on what he has to do, also change his location. It depends in where he has to visit or where he has to work, and then finding a location which is close. But depending on the kinds of needs he have, he goes to one or another location. The same with the Instant Group team, a huge company, a big company that can choose several places to work, but also depending on their needs, employees go to one place or another. So the headlines will be flexibility and also people. And I think that it's something that we commented in the previous session, that talents attract talent, right? So people like to be with other people, and people like to work comfortably and want this flexibility in all aspects. So you are not only, sometimes flexibility, it's like, oh, it's about the rate. No, it's not about the rate. It's about the workplace. It's about everything. So we have just 1 minute to go. So I would like to say thank you to Sarah, to Albert. There's anything you want to add to this amazing session? Any thought, any wish?
I think just if anyone has any questions, obviously they can feel free to reach out, contact the Instant Group.
I think they were so amazed that there was any single question. So I don't know if this is really good or really bad. I hope it's really good. I will take the good one. Albert?
Just to thank you for the invitation, and the same. I'm freely available to contact through Twitter or LinkedIn or whatever. I will recommend this. I mentioned twice, but I will mention a third time the issue of the Harvard Business Review of the month of December. Get it, read it.
Yeah, we are going to share that link in our Attendify. So Albert, I can certify that he always gives great advice on news, what to read, what to not read. So thank you, Albert. Thank you, Sarah, for being part of this event.
Thank you.
And we will be back in 10 minutes with the next panel. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much. Also, by the way, to our technicians, Andrea and Juan, which are working behind the cameras. And see you in 10 minutes. Thank you so much.
Thank you.